folks, it's Ken Fatula again, and we're gonna do some making of crab cakes, one of my favorite things in the world. And remember, I'm not a chef, so I'm just gonna prepare them the way that I prepare them. It will depart some from the way that other people do it. For instance, there's a recipe on this. This is Philip's crab meat, and I'm sure that this is a good recipe. It's just that I have the desire to be able to really taste the crab, and especially the sweetness that's in the crab, because I am a sweet person. But what we're going to do is we're going to start this thing off. One of the first things I've got to do is prepare some vegetables. Very few people actually put vegetables in this thing, but when I say vegetables, I'm talking about onions, celery, and some colored peppers, bell pepper. So I'm going to just go over here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be prepping, and I'm using butter, and really no salt because I use salted butter. I figure it this way: killing two birds, one stone. So we're going to have to wait for this butter to melt a little bit, but I'm going to tell you what I'm using. One thing is, and these pieces are cut about 1/4 inch, 3/16 of an inch, roughly in square. You'll see them when I dump them in. And I've got this is celery, and actually there's even some of the inner celery leaves. You want to use the inner leaves because the outer leaves are pretty rough. I mean, they're pretty strong. And a lot of this is interior stalk. So it's that white stuff that's pretty mild, but it still has quite a bit of the flavor. It doesn't have to be the inner stalk, but that's what I'm having to use. Another thing that I told you, it's colored pepper. This happens to be a red colored pepper. It's got some sweetness to it. The chunks don't have to be super small, but we want them small enough so that as they cook down, you're going to be able to incorporate them into a crab cake. And the last thing, and this goes against everything that I told you before, I'm using red onions. Now, the reason I'm using red onions is because we're not going to be eating these things raw. Not that you can't eat raw red onions, but they do have some assertiveness. And I think sometimes people would rebel at that. And that's why I use sweet peppers or sweet onions if I'm ever going to be working with raw onions that is to be eaten. So they're always sweet for me. And I am a sweet person. So we've got some butter in here, and I got this skillet. It's starting to melt. And what I'm going to do is, as soon as it does melt, the first thing I'm going to be putting in is the celery, because I want that to cook first. It seems to have the longest time to get it to soften up. And we're sweating these vegetables and not sauteing. Apparently there is a difference, although I'm not really sure because, well, I'm not a chef. So what can I say? Hey, but this is one of the, I almost said funnest things, but I do like to prepare these vegetables. Later on, the next YouTube that I do is going to be with steak sandwiches. My steak sandwich, I shouldn't talk about it now, but my steak sandwich is different from other people's. And I've been working on it for probably 15 years. Actually, the crab cake, same thing. Trying to work to perfection. And then I'm sure that there are some people out there and they try it and they say, this is perfect. Sure. But let's put some of the celery in there. Now we'll get the celery in first. And we're just going to let it cook up. And I put them, ordinarily I would have cut this thing in front of you, but we're trying to, an economy of time here. I can't afford to waste too much time. And I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want you to be aware of what you do in order to make a Ken Fatula crab cake. I actually think I'm going to call it that because the recipe is different from almost anybody else's recipe. Frequently what they do is they put in mustard or Worcestershire sauce. I don't use any of that. And like, the reason I don't is because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get at having a sweet flavor come out of this. I'm not trying to overpower anything. Some say, well, it gives it a depth of flavor. Whatever. I'm just, apparently I'm not that deep, so I'm not doing it. I had it at kind of like a low medium, the lower end of the medium scale. but I'm bumping it up midway, so I'm at medium. And I want these things to sweat down. We're trying to drive the moisture out of them and make them limp. And that will be happening. I think I might need a little bit more butter, although it does look like it's doing its thing. All right, these are starting to work. So now that I've got the celery going, I'm going to put in the peppers. Believe it or not, this is one of the longest in terms of time. This takes up more time than most of the rest of the stuff to make my crab cake. Now, I don't know if you can hear it sizzle, but it is sizzling. And this is exactly what I wanted, so. My hands are clean. You remember that commercial? Only one soap can get these hands clean, man. That's lava. I'm very old. I turned 75. 75 in 3/4 of a century. Undoubtedly, some people are saying, "Why did he survive?" But I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm here for you, the eater, because that's what this is all about: is eating. I want you to be able to experience something, be able to make your own, and see that after you do this a couple times, you'll realize that, gee whiz, this doesn't take all that much time. I'll be using a pound of crab meat when I finally get it out. I have 2 8-ounce containers of Phillips. Phillips is one of the more expensive, higher end. It's also, you know, it's good. There are a lot of good ones out there. Don't get chicken in the sea, of course. Get whatever you want. Sadly, crab has gone up in price dramatically in the last 6 months. It went from where I could buy it routinely for 12 bucks a pound. It's now 20 bucks a pound. And you say, well, this isn't I don't know if I can afford something like this. Well, if you like crab cakes and you go to the restaurant, how much do they charge? I seriously doubt that you can, and this should make 8 crab cakes. Are they huge? No, they're not huge. But they won't have to be huge because they're going to be delicious. Once again, I'm showing you that these are starting to get heated. A lot of the moisture is being driven out. I have it on super high heat. I use the butter because butter really goes well with the flavor of the crab. So that's why I bother to use butter instead of oil. I don't want to use oil in the crab at all. And it was a few weeks, I guess it was last week. I went to a store and I bought crab cakes because I just wanted to compare a purchased crab cake. The crab cakes, there were 2 of them. They were reasonably sized. They were almost $7. They were over $6 a pop. That means that, given the type of ingredients that you've got here, is you can make your own crab cakes for less than if you buy them, and certainly less than if you're going to a restaurant. Let's see. What do we got going on here? Got those red onions in. Now, these red onions, when they start to sweat, and I am going to put a little bit of butter. I'm going to put some butter in there. Yeah. What'll happen with the onions, a lot of the harshness, at least my experience has been, the harshness of the red onion is going to be kind of tempered by heating it up and driving out some of the moisture. Now I think there are oils. Well, I'm not sure, remember, not a chef. I think there are oils in onions. And one of the things you have to be careful of is cutting an onion or something like that way ahead of time, because a lot of the essentials, I think they dry out or something. It literally changes the flavor, but we're okay so far. Okay, anyway, I'm back. What we're gonna do is, this is the crab meat. It's some are in cans. You can buy loose crab meat. And all you have to do is knock over a couple 7-Elevens to pay for it. And it's not cheap. It's hard to find crab meat in some places in the United States, and I'm being serious. I have a daughter that lives in Glendale, or did live in Glendale, California, and I had to go to a special fish market, and this is 3 years ago, buying a pound of crab. It was Dungeness crab meat, but it was the only place I could find, and it was 45 bucks a pound. I had to take out a loan. I was just gonna trade a kid or something for it, but didn't have any. So this is usually pasteurized. I'm not sure if this is or not, but I'm fairly certain. Now the reason I use the claw meat is because it's the sweetest. And sometimes it's very dark. If you want to use lump or jumbo lump, that's fine. That's up to you. I just can't afford that. So, and frankly, I think that they're a lot more mild in their flavor. So I'm going with this. And I love it. Let me scrape everything out. And any moisture that's in there, let it stay in. Don't get rid of it. You're going to be baking these things. I bake them. Now, a lot of people, they fry them. Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm fat. So I try to stay away from as many fried things as possible, unless we're talking French fries, in which case there's no substitute for French fries. And I don't have an air fryer, so I don't fry very much at all. Let me toss this away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in here. I turned off the vegetables. I'll be taking those off the stove in a minute. Every now and then I say oven for stove. It's early onset, don't worry. All right, let me get rid of this. I like to get things out of my way while I'm cooking. I don't want a bunch of junk. Now, to mix these, I'm putting on nitrile gloves because it gets pretty funky when you're working with these things. It can be potentially sloppy. And if there's one thing that I don't want to have, it's sloppy hands. It's all about appearances. No, it's actually all about the tactile nature of the things that I'm going to be mixing here. You mix them together and you say, whoa, this is slimy, dude. Yeah, it is. It's absolutely slime city. But man, once you bake it, oh yeah. All right, first thing we're going to do is I've got the crab in here. These are panko breadcrumbs. Now, the reason I use panko is because I like the appearance. But besides that, we're going to be putting in here, this is 1/3 of a cup here. I'm going to be mixing in more than 1/3 of a cup. In fact, might as well put what was left over. So we've got better than 1/3 of a cup, probably close to a half. I'm not quite there. And we're going to be using this one then for something else in the preparation of the crab cake. Once again, I'm throwing stuff away. I got to get it out of my way. And these, all right, this is what I was after. I wanted to have this kind of wilted configuration, and that's what I've got. And you're going to see, this is a silver trivet, and it's got legs on it. So I want this to heat down. I don't want to put this in here and start cooking the mixture. So I'm going to put it there and make a lot of noise, and then we'll add this in a little bit. So we got this, we got mayonnaise. Now, some of them call for a tablespoon of mayonnaise. No, I don't think so. We need about 1/3 of a cup of mayonnaise. That's per 1 pound of crab meat. Remember, this is all based on a pound because I've got 2 8-ounce containers. And some might say, well, that's a lot. It is. But it's also a good binder. The recipe that they've got is an 8-ounce recipe anyway. So this would take twice as much as is on the container. And you know what I don't get is you might get 4 crab cakes out of 8 ounces. So if you're gonna have 4 crab cakes out of 8 ounces, why not have 1 pound and get 8? Or, as I'm not in the habit of doing all the time, I've been known to make 16, 18. I've done like 3 pounds at a time. It's 24 crab cakes. But that's because I have a lot of children and grandchildren, and they all love my crab cakes. So just trying to satisfy their needs. And I'm being a little sloppy, but that's okay. All right, I'm putting this in here, and the next thing that we're going to do, put this on the side of the bowl. I'll be going after that later when I start mixing things. All right, I won't need this anymore. Sink City. Now, mayonnaise should be refrigerated, so it's going to the refrigerator. All right. Something else that needs to go in there. This is Old Bay seasoning. There are a variety. Phillips has theirs. There are different seafood seasonings. I like Old Bay. And what I originally put a teaspoon in, but the fact is I'm going to go with about 1.5 teaspoons. And in fact, I just dropped about 1/2 past the teaspoon itself. And it just depends on how much you like this. Now, this is a seasoned salt. In fact, if you read ingredients, it is celery salt. Okay, so that's the first thing. Salt with celery seed, yeah, and then spices, including red pepper, black pepper, and paprika. So you could make your own if you want to. But frankly, this is the stuff that I swear by. I think that it's delicious. It's the best stuff out there. And now, this is the other ingredient. Stuff's still a little warm. What we're going to do is we're going to break an egg, I should say. We're going to put an egg in here. I'm only using 1 per pound. Now, some recipes would say 2. I don't care. Do whatever you want to do. I'm just using 1 because what I want is crab. This is basically a binder, as I understand it. So it seems to bind well. You say, gee, Ken, why did you do that? If you crack an egg, sometimes the egg will leave shards and you end up putting eggshell in whatever you're baking or cooking or preparing. That's often because people might want to crack them on the side of a container, which there are guys that do it, and I've watched them, and I'm thinking, wow. But if you hit it on a flat surface, you're less prone to have that problem. And so when you open it up, you're not going to be getting a bunch of shell in there. I'm just telling you that in advance. And of course, my wife, because she has a pristine kitchen, she wants to make sure that I use a paper towel so I don't slop the place up. And there goes. They don't go into the compost pile because they don't rot. It's calcium and stuff. All right. I've got everything ready to go except for the vegetables, which I'm going to put them in this bowl. I got a tiny bowl here. This is kind of what they look like. You see, they just sort of like limp. And they have a sheen to them, probably from the butter. So I'm going to just put these in here. Now you could use more or you could use less. That's completely up to you. Just remember that the more you put in there, you want to make sure that you've got enough binder. Oh. Now you can't smell this because, well, it's a video. But when will they get smell-o-vision, Jim? We don't know.
I think smell-o-vision exists.
Smell-o-vision. You know, there are just some things that we should not be able to smell. But, okay, you got smell-o-vision. Now, I'm going to start mixing. How hot is this? Okay, we're going to put it in. And the next thing is the easy part. It's making the cake. By the way, I have to do something else here. Ken, what are you doing? You're pouring out all of that good panko. Ah, weed hopper. No, there's a reason for the panko to be there. And you will see. So I'm taking this out. I want to get as much stuff off of this as I possibly can. Put it into, yes. Now, it's a simple matter of putting your hands in there and mixing things around. It might have been smart if I would have taken the egg and maybe scrambled it before I threw it in, but it seems to work either way. It's not a big deal. Now this is, remember, claw meat is the sweeter. It also doesn't incorporate the same way that the lump does. You got to be careful with the lump in the sense that if you take the lump meat, they're larger chunks. So the advantage to it is that they're larger chunks. And if you take the larger chunk and you suddenly make, you're making a crab cake and you've taken the large chunks and you've crushed them, well, that kind of defeats the whole purpose. But, all right, now hopefully I have enough panko in here. Now this seems to be holding together. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is the crazy part. This does seem to be a little moist. You might want to put more panko in when you make them. You're taking panko and you are rimming the cake. This is simple and it's also time consuming. Oh, look at the size of this one. We'll save this one for you. This is your crab cake. A lot of these crab cakes are going to be frozen. I will prepare them. They will be fully baked and then they will be frozen. I've got the oven turned on, but before we put these in the oven, we need to put butter on them. Well, Ken, why are we putting butter on them? Because butter is so good with crab. This is one of the things that's going to impart some flavor. A pat of butter, doesn't have to be super thick. And as it bakes, in theory anyway, it should sink right into the cake itself while it's being baked. All right, we got these things ready to go. Here is the oven. All right, now I'm going to look at this. We're at about 400. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this, because they were a little wet, I'm going to set the timer for 13 minutes. Actually, I'm going to set it for 14 because it's not going to overcook them. I'm not worried about that. Now, sadly, we can't do much with this, the panko here, because there's been stuff mixed in with it, and I'm gonna have to throw it away. All right, now the crab cakes have been in here for about 14 minutes. Hopefully that wasn't too much. Oh, they look good. Now what you want to do is you want to check for firmness. Now the top of them, you see the butter is inside the cake. What we're gonna do is flip them. Oh yeah, they're set up. Baby, baby, baby. Gotta be about 7 more minutes after this, and then they're ready to eat. But take a look at that. Do they look good? Of course they do. Look at that bad boy. That sucker's massive. You probably wonder, this guy really likes his food, doesn't he? No. I got fat by hating food. Nah, come on. There it is. This is, I think, when these things come out after a few more minutes, and I'm going to set that right there, we're going to be ready to rock. Let me check the temperature on this because my oven, I need a new oven. No, it's still holding at 400. Awesome. We're going to give this another 7 minutes, and then we're ready to eat. Are we okay? See, now there's one of them that's bubbling slightly, and that's the one that was the biggest. So it could be, I'm sure it's done. That's not the issue. But these bad boys, I think, are ready to go. Leonore? Yeah? Are you ready for a crab cake? I'll tell you what I should do. Jim, I got a crab cake for you.
Well, how about you try one first?
All right, this is the deal. I'm going to eat one. Now, they're really hot right now. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take one for the team. I'm going to eat a crab cake by myself. I'm not involving anybody else. I don't want anybody to be potentially injured by eating a crab cake. Yeah, they're a little steamy. I'm going to let this cool down a tad bit. They've got, the outside is a little crisp. That was a panko. Oh, I'd eat this. Now, here's the deal. You can put anything on it. Some people put tartar sauce on. Some people use some more Old Bay, and it just depends. Old Bay is really, I mean, I like it because it's got some heat and it's got that interest in the celery. And it adds a tad bit of salt. I could have put in 2 full tablespoons, or teaspoons, I mean. And it might have been a little warmer, but I think it's good. In fact, I don't think it's good. I think it's great. But that's me. I'm the one that made it. I would expect that that would be the kind of person that I would be. So, Jim, we have an impartial person is going to be taking a bite of a crab cake. And if you read his obituary, you know what happened. Jim, it's your crab cake. It's all urine. Nah, I'm just teasing. I know. It's one of those things. It might be a little warm. As it cools off, it might get better. Where are we at? A lot of crab?
That is one good crab cake.
A lot of crab. See, that's the whole thing. If it's a crab cake, it shouldn't be a panko or a breadcrumb cake, or it shouldn't be an egg cake. It should be a crab cake. And that's what I was trying to achieve, and that's where I'm at. But you know what? That's my approach to it. You do whatever you want.
And it's light.
It is light. That's true. And they're easy. I mean, when you cut into them, I've had some that were, you broke them open and you say, okay, I know there's crab in here, but a lot of filler. No filler here. And I guarantee you, if you do this, you make your own crab cakes, you're going to be a happy camper.
Like and subscribe.
You won't have anything to be crabby about. At any rate, well, that's all that I've got. And next time we're going to be making some steak sandwiches. My approach to the Philly steak sandwich. And it's a little different, as always, but I think that it's good and it's simple. And you can make these things at home on your own. So this is Ken Fatula saying adios for the time being. And remember, I'm not a chef.